we're gonna pivot a little bit today on the Jeep. I remembered to turn the microphone on the big camera today. I did like a whole bunch of stuff and I forgot to turn the microphone on. So we're down to literally a handful of little projects left to do on this thing, none of which are too major. But one of the biggest things that I need to do in order to kind of like leap this thing forward in its looks of completion anyway is to weld on these little extensions here. I can include some footage from when I forgot the microphone of when I was making this. Maybe I'll do a little voiceover or something, I don't know. Today we're gonna just quickly weld those up. Hopefully, probably gonna put a clamp or something on here to keep everything nice and happy on the angle, because when you weld, this is gonna wanna move. But we did a nice little bevel, so we should get some good penetration and I should be able to grind it nice and smooth. And then I wanna get this stuff out to paint as soon as possible because it's starting to flash rust on me. And the more it rusts, the more time it's going to take a paint shop to prep it. I do think I'm actually gonna go powder. These fenders are powder coated, so I think I'm just gonna go with the same color, and that way in the future, if I wanna swap things out or add or remove or whatever, I can just go and get a powder coat and everything is gonna stay nice and consistent. So it's like brutally hot today, so I'm just gonna take my time. You can see I pulled the Jeep out into the middle, so we're nice and happy. And I'm gonna get this stuff welded up. Bam, it really looks really good. I'm excited about that. Alright, so got a nice weld on there. Should be plenty deep enough. I don't really care about what the back of this thing looks like, but we're gonna grind that nice and smooth, and we should end up with a nice smooth product that looks like it was always there. We'll be able to finish this up a little bit once it's off the Jeep, but for now, I think that really cleans up the look of this thing, and I'm really excited. Whew, all right, so that came out super nice. I'm actually really happy with that. So now I will pivot to another project. I'm just gonna get confirmation of when this stuff has to go into the paint shop. It's like really hot out today, so I think I'm gonna avoid taking all this stuff off. Maybe I could probably benefit from having some help taking this stuff off, to be honest. Two things on the back burner. We have an about date of when we're gonna get some paint work done. That's not gonna be for probably about another month. And then we have a cool little piece coming for the steering, so I don't wanna touch that until I have that in my possession so I can play with it and make sure everything is happy. So we're actually so far along that I don't really have to do anything, but I think what I'm gonna do is kind of work on the bumper a little bit here. Really, I just want to cut out these triangles. If I can get those triangles on there, I'll be happy, and then we can really start playing with things. Obviously, we're going to cut out the middle part so we can countersink our winch in there. And then we're going to try and find some ways to reinforce that the best we can. I have some really cool D-ring mount shackle things. They're actually like really nice pieces, very nicely machined. So we got to come up with a cool, strong solution to mount these really nicely. I really kind of don't want to do something as simple as that. I'd rather somehow maybe like weld it right to the frame or something. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do yet, but whatever it is, kind of want it to be nice and slim. Maybe we can like countersink it, something like that. Maybe if I weld it to the frame, like right here or something. I don't know. Got those little triangles cut out, looking nice and good. You can see I placed the winch on there again, and I have a line traced out here, and I'm just kind of debating on how I want to go about attaching the winch to just the Jeep itself, actually. So my original plan was to drop it down and just weld it to this tube that goes across now. This is like my new cross member for the frame, and I was literally just going to weld that to the tube. and I'm having second thoughts now because the way that this thing kicks out, it gets close to the steering box, which is fine. However, I want to keep this thing serviceable, and if I ever want to get that out, that's 110% going to get in the way. So I'm kind of looking at making a bolt-on solution, but it's tricky because I don't know how I would go about accessing some bolts. Obviously, I could do some like L brackets to the plate that's down on the bottom, but I still want to keep it strong enough that it's not going to bend any sheet metal. I want it to be on some corners here that aren't going to be susceptible to bending. So I think this is where I'm going to call it tonight. I'm really kind of stumped on how to attach this whole deal. I think what I'm going to end up doing is just welding the winch thing to the bumper itself. I wish that little hole wasn't in there, but we'll be able to get some good material right in here and then in the back, and that way we'll have good attachment on the bumper itself. We're going to have 2 bolts here, and we're going to have 3 or 4 bolts over here, and then I'll add some tabs down in here that come from the inside of the winch plate down to the bottom plate, and it'll tie it in that way. What I did with the bumper here is that I use the square tube as a cross member, so I don't have this bottom bolt anymore. Obviously I could extend this and add some tabs if I want to. I probably should, but I do think if I just tie it down that way, we're gonna be good. And then once that's all together, then I'll worry about where I'm gonna put my recovery point. I'm debating just using one, like right there, really close to these bolts, because I don't want it to bend this up. So the closer I can get it to these bolts that are going to be here, the better. The other idea I had was countersink this down in there, because I'm going to have to do some work here anyway to get a fair lead on here. So this is all going to have to be like Frenched out really nicely, and I might be able to just get away with like kind of dropping this in there, welding it right to the winch plate and to the bumper, and I think that would keep everything nice and strong. I'm not really sure, but yeah, we're getting there. Yeah, baby, I'm a ride or die. Leave a message on the party line. All right, here's a little update for you. So obviously we got everything on there looking good, and we have these brackets down here done. So we're bolted into the winch plate, and then we're bolted through the plate that's welded onto the frame. See if the camera wants to... That's hard to see, but now that we're completely sandwiched through that giant plate that's welded onto the frame, I feel a lot more comfortable. I'm doing everything I can do to keep that plate down there from wanting to bend up. And I think those plates are going to do more than enough. And then most of the pulling power will hopefully come from like this direction, and they'll be pulling on these spots here, and then we're still going to do some more reinforcing here, but something showed up for this project that I'm a little excited about. It's my first product from this company, and we got a Factor 55 fair lead. They just have like the cleanest, slimmest looking fair lead, and it's funny I said slim, but I got the 1.5 inch thick boy, because I'm kind of thinking that it's gonna sit. Yep, that's gonna look pretty cool. So this is gonna be the next tricky part of this project, is obviously that doesn't line up, and we're gonna have to French this into the bumper kind of somewhere down in here. I think it's gonna look really cool, and it's also gonna take a lot of time to accomplish, but hey, not practice. This whole thing is taking me a little bit of time, so what's one more little project? Alright, so today's project is to make this look a little bit more pretty. So now you really get the idea of what I'm trying to accomplish here. These rough cuts just make this thing look kind of goofy. We might have to do some sort of like smoothing out in these corners here just to kind of make everything more rounded. But yeah, so I'm gonna start by I gotta trim out this a little bit, and then we're gonna have to cut this down, make a gap in there. I want to be able to weld my plan is to weld this winch plate to the bumper itself, and so I want to be able to get some weld in this front plate to the bottom of the winch plate, not only for strength, but, well, only for strength really, for frontal impact, but then also just to keep everything nice and rigid, and that also gives me more weld contact onto the bumper and the winch plate. So I think I've earned myself a fresh pair of gloves here. These gloves have been nothing but the best, and I actually lost my last pair. I have no clue where they went, so bam.
You make me feel just how I like. You make me feel so.
Okay, so here's another update. We got the pocket kind of built in here. I was gonna do my tubes and make these like little radiuses, but I couldn't find the right material around. And this is gonna look just fine once it's all welded up. I can either grind it down or whatever. So this actually fits like so perfect that I can't get weld in here, but I'll be able to take it off and weld it underneath, I hope. Yeah, I think so. I think I'll be able to get some weld on the bottom of that. And then I got some little beads on either end of it, and then this whole front part here all around it. So pretty happy with it. I keep holding the focus button, sorry. Yeah, so that's solid progress for tonight. I kind of think all that's left on this, I can call it good, is giving it a good weld. I still need to figure out what to do with the recovery point here, but I'm kind of thinking I'm going to do just the one recovery point right here. This is easily the strongest part of the bumper. I'm going to make a little tie down on the inside of it too to keep this plate from wanting to bend. But we have the plate mount there, and then these two bolts here. There's actually two more bolt holes I can get to under here. And so if I just mount this right there, super accessible for everybody if they need to get me off the trail. I can do, well, you can't get crazy with it because you need to be able to just make it accessible. I don't really know how I feel about this whole thing here. I feel like that's how most bumpers are, but I don't know. What do you think? What do you think I should do with the tie down or the recovery point?